Everyone feels pressure, but not everyone receives precision. Pressure is common. It shows up in every life, at every level, in every season. Bills create pressure. Expectations create pressure. Delays create pressure. Opposition creates pressure. But precision is rare, because precision is what God develops in people He trusts with purpose. Pressure pushes everyone, but precision is formed only in those who refuse to panic and choose obedience instead. Pressure is something everyone experiences, but purpose determines what that pressure produces. For many, pressure simply weighs them down, creating stress, confusion, and exhaustion. But for those God is shaping with intention, pressure becomes a tool for precision. You are not under pressure because something is wrong. You are under pressure because something important is being refined. Precision does not happen randomly. It is developed when life demands accuracy, discipline, and focus. Pressure forces clarity. When everything is comfortable, choices can be careless. But when pressure is present, every decision matters. You begin to notice what drains you and what strengthens you. You become aware of what aligns with your calling and what distracts from it. This awareness is the beginning of precision. God allows pressure to narrow your focus, not to limit you, but to sharpen you. What once felt optional now feels essential. What once felt urgent now feels unnecessary. Without pressure, there is no reason to slow down and listen. Pressure interrupts autopilot living. It demands attention. It brings you to a place where instinct alone is not enough, and you must seek wisdom beyond yourself. Precision grows when you stop reacting and start discerning. You pause, reflect, and choose with intention rather than impulse. That shift changes everything. Pressure also exposes what cannot carry weight. Weak habits, shallow commitments, and misplaced priorities collapse under strain. This is not failure, it is refinement. God is removing what cannot support the future. He is preparing for you. Precision requires a strong foundation. If something breaks under pressure, it was never meant to last. As pressure increases, so does responsibility. God does not sharpen tools He does not plan to use. The intensity of this season is connected to the importance of the next one. Precision is necessary because what you will be entrusted with requires careful handling. Carelessness would cause damage. Accuracy will bring growth and stability. Pressure teaches discipline. You learn consistency not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. You learn to manage your time, guard your thoughts, and steward your energy. Precision is built through repeated obedience in small things. Every disciplined choice trains you to move with greater accuracy. It also deepens dependence on God. Pressure reveals the limits of self-reliance and pushes you toward prayer, humility, and trust. Precision is not about controlling outcomes, but about aligning decisions with God's direction. The more you rely on Him, the clearer your steps become. This is why pressure feels purposeful rather than chaotic. You are being shaped, not shaken. Others may feel crushed, but you are being calibrated. Pressure is adjusting your aim, refining your focus, and preparing you to move with clarity and confidence. Everyone experiences pressure, but because God is at work in you, that pressure is producing precision. Pressure is not just something to endure, it is something to interpret. While everyone faces it, How you respond to pressure determines whether it produces chaos or clarity. Most people react impulsively under stress, making decisions based on fear, frustration, or urgency. But those who receive precision learn to respond with intention. Precision under pressure is about stopping long enough to understand the situation, seeking guidance, and making choices that align with God's purpose rather than human emotion. When pressure surrounds you, it exposes the difference between instinct and insight. Instinct reacts, insight waits. Instinct jumps, insight calculates. Instinct panics, insight prays. Precision grows when you refuse to be driven by panic and instead allow God to guide your steps. Pressure can feel overwhelming, but it is designed to create the conditions for disciplined decision-making. The weight you feel is not to crush you, but to focus you. Pressure also teaches timing. Many mistakes happen because people act too quickly under stress, believing speed will solve the problem. Precision understands that timing is everything. Acting too soon or too late can ruin what God intends to produce. Under pressure, you learn to recognize the right moment for action, the right words to speak, and the right steps to take. This awareness separates those who merely survive pressure from those who thrive under it. Another way pressure develops precision is by exposing distractions. When life is calm, it is easy to be scattered. Under pressure, the unnecessary falls away. You begin to notice who and what truly matters. You learn to protect your focus, energy, and attention. Every moment under pressure becomes an opportunity to train your mind and heart to prioritize what aligns with your purpose. Precision is built in environments that demand attention to detail and eliminate complacency. Pressure also strengthens perseverance. Many people give up when the weight becomes too heavy, but precision requires endurance. You learn how to hold steady even when circumstances feel chaotic. You learn how to make thoughtful decisions even when the world expects immediate reactions. This persistence under pressure builds confidence, maturity, and the ability to navigate future challenges with accuracy. Furthermore, pressure teaches accountability. When stakes are high, every action has consequences. Precision develops when you take responsibility for your choices instead of blaming circumstances or other people. You begin to measure your steps carefully, understanding that your decisions shape outcomes far beyond yourself. This self-awareness transforms ordinary responses into strategic actions guided by purpose. Finally, pressure develops faith. You learn to trust God when solutions are not obvious and outcomes are uncertain. Precision grows when your trust in God's wisdom outweighs reliance on your own understanding. You become intentional, not reactive, deliberate, not hasty, faithful, not fearful. While everyone experiences pressure, only those who lean into God's guidance under it gain the clarity, confidence, and accuracy that precision produces. Pressure has a way of exposing what is hidden in a person's heart. Under normal circumstances, it is easy to maintain appearances and manage life on autopilot. But when the weight of responsibility, expectation, or opposition increases, true character surfaces. Precision begins to develop when you recognize that pressure is not an enemy, but a mirror. It reveals what is strong, what is weak, and what must be refined. What survives pressure without breaking becomes the foundation for accuracy and intentionality. Everyone experiences stress, but not everyone allows it to teach them. Many people under pressure act out of fear, impatience, or pride. They make choices that seem urgent, but are misaligned with long-term purpose. Precision, however, requires the discipline to pause, evaluate, and respond wisely. It requires understanding that every decision has consequence, and that careless reactions under pressure can undo progress. Pressure is a teacher, and its lessons are available only to those willing to listen. Pressure also clarifies priorities. When life demands more than usual, distractions become glaringly obvious. The things you tolerated before may now feel irrelevant or even harmful. The people who added noise instead of support become noticeable. The habits that were harmless in ease now reveal their cost. Precision grows when you learn to strip away the non-essential and focus exclusively on what matters most. Pressure forces you to confront what is necessary for success and what is merely indulgent. Furthermore, pressure tests faith. It pushes you into situations where relying on human wisdom is insufficient. Precision develops when you learn to depend not on what is visible or convenient, but on God's guidance. Under pressure, prayer becomes sharper, discernment becomes keener, and patience becomes intentional. Decisions are no longer made for comfort or approval, but for alignment with God's purpose. This is the essence of precision, moving with deliberate clarity, even when the path is difficult. Pressure also teaches resilience. Not every challenge is immediately solvable, and not every setback comes with an easy way forward. Precision is forged when you endure, adapt, and continue forward despite uncertainty. You learn to assess situations without panic, to act without haste, and to trust without needing every answer in advance. This steady composure under strain produces results that impulsive action cannot achieve. It is what separates those who merely survive pressure from those who thrive through it. Another key aspect is accountability. Under pressure, excuses no longer suffice. Precision grows when you accept responsibility for your actions, thoughts, and words. You learn to measure each step, to anticipate consequences, and to operate with intentionality. Pressure demands that you become proactive rather than reactive, deliberate rather than distracted, and strategic rather than impulsive. Finally, pressure sharpens discernment. It teaches you to distinguish what is urgent from what is essential, what is temporary from what is permanent, and what aligns with purpose from what does not. Those who endure pressure with faith and intentionality emerge not only stronger but wiser, capable of moving through life with precision rather than chaos. Pressure may be universal, but precision is a gift reserved for those willing to embrace it. Pressure is often uncomfortable, relentless, and unavoidable, but it is precisely under pressure that precision is cultivated. Many people try to escape pressure, seeing it as a threat to comfort or progress. Yet the truth is that pressure is not random, it is intentional. God allows pressure in your life not to harm you, but to refine you, to sharpen your focus, and to develop the accuracy necessary for your purpose. Pressure is the testing ground where ordinary efforts are separated from extraordinary results. When you face pressure, your natural tendencies are revealed. Do you panic, complain, or compromise? Or do you pause, assess, and respond with intentionality? Precision is developed when you refuse to react impulsively to every demand, delay, or opposition. It requires self-control, discernment, and the courage to remain steadfast while others may falter. The difference between those who crumble under pressure and those who emerge with clarity is not the weight itself, but the response to it. Pressure teaches strategic thinking. Life under stress requires careful evaluation of each step. You learn to weigh consequences, anticipate challenges, and make decisions deliberately rather than carelessly. Every choice becomes significant, and mistakes under pressure can be costly. Precision grows as you practice patience, observation, and wise judgment. Under pressure, shortcuts no longer appeal because you recognize that the integrity of your actions determines the outcome of your life and calling. Another essential lesson of pressure is focus. When external forces press in, they reveal what is truly essential. Frivolous distractions lose their appeal, and unnecessary concerns fall away. You begin to see your goals and responsibilities more clearly, and your energy is naturally redirected toward what matters most. Precision is about alignment, aligning your actions with your purpose, your decisions with God's guidance, and your priorities with His plan. Pressure forces this alignment by eliminating what is superfluous. Pressure also strengthens endurance. It teaches you to continue forward even when the path is unclear and the obstacles feel overwhelming. Precision is not only about accuracy in action, but also consistency over time. Pressure tests your ability to persist, and persistence under strain develops resilience, discipline, and reliability. These are essential qualities for anyone who seeks to move with purpose and make a lasting impact. Faith is another dimension sharpened by pressure. When life feels overwhelming, you are compelled to rely less on your own strength and more on God's wisdom and guidance. Precision is birthed in dependence on divine direction, where every move is considered, prayed over, and executed with intention. Pressure forces you into a posture of trust, showing you that clarity and effectiveness do not come from human instinct alone, but from obedience to God's timing and instruction. Finally, pressure cultivates awareness. You begin to notice patterns, identify weaknesses, and understand the dynamics around you more clearly. It teaches discernment, the ability to distinguish what is essential from what is trivial, what is authentic from what is deceptive, and what will endure from what will fade. Precision is the natural result of this heightened awareness, the ability to act decisively, accurately, and effectively in every situation. Pressure may feel overwhelming at times, but it is purposeful. Everyone experiences it, but only those who embrace it with faith, patience, and intention develop the precision necessary to thrive. Under pressure, you are not being crushed, you are being calibrated, sharpened, and prepared for the responsibilities and opportunities that await. Pressure is the classroom. Precision is the skill it develops. Pressure is universal, but the outcomes it produces are not. Some people crumble under weight, while others rise with clarity and purpose. The difference lies in perspective. Pressure is often misunderstood as punishment, but in reality, it is preparation. God allows pressure in your life not to break you, but to shape you, to teach you discipline, and to develop the precision necessary for your destiny. This is why you must view pressure not as an obstacle, but but as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more accurate in every area of your life. One of the key lessons pressure teaches is self-mastery. Under normal circumstances, it is easy to act impulsively or follow convenience. But when life becomes intense and demands more from you, every choice is scrutinized, not by others, but by the circumstances themselves. Precision is developed when you learn to control your emotions, manage your time, and make decisions thoughtfully rather than reactively. Pressure exposes weaknesses, but it also provides the chance to strengthen them. The weight you feel is a tool designed to train you in focus, patience, and deliberate action. Pressure also cultivates discernment. When life becomes complicated, you quickly realize that not everything demanding attention is worthy of it. Pressure forces you to differentiate between what is urgent and what is essential, between what aligns with your calling and what is merely distraction. Precision is born when you consistently prioritize wisely, acting only on what contributes to your purpose while letting go of what does not. In this way, pressure sharpens your ability to make accurate decisions, even under stress. Another way pressure develops precision is through endurance. It teaches you to persist when results are delayed and challenges feel relentless. Many people give up at the first sign of difficulty, but those who develop precision understand that timing and perseverance are crucial. Pressure requires that you maintain discipline, remain consistent, and continue moving forward, even when immediate success seems impossible. This steady persistence under weight is what allows you to handle more responsibility and execute decisions accurately when it matters most. Pressure also deepens dependence on God. When challenges are intense and resources limited, you learn that your own strength is insufficient. Precision is developed when you seek God's guidance before making decisions, allowing His wisdom to direct your steps. Under pressure, you learn to pause, pray, and act in alignment with divine instruction rather than human instinct. This reliance produces clarity, reduces errors, and ensures that your actions are not only accurate, but also aligned with purpose. Finally, pressure teaches humility and accountability. It reminds you that your success is not based on luck or convenience, but on intentional choices and obedience. Precision grows when you take responsibility for your actions, evaluate the results honestly, and make corrections where needed. Pressure forces you to become conscious of every decision, every word, and every step, cultivating a level of discipline that prepares you for greater impact. Everyone experiences pressure, but precision is reserved for those who embrace it with faith, focus, and intentionality. Pressure may feel heavy, but it is purposeful, shaping you into someone capable of handling responsibility with accuracy, clarity, and wisdom. What others see as difficulty, God uses to produce excellence. Under pressure, you are not being broken, you are being sharpened. Pressure is often perceived as a burden, something to avoid or escape. But for those who understand its purpose, pressure is a signal that something significant is unfolding. Everyone experiences stress, tension, and challenges, but not everyone turns that pressure into precision. The sixth key lesson of this principle is that pressure under God's design develops mastery over your circumstances, your choices, and ultimately your destiny. It trains you to respond with accuracy, wisdom, and intentionality rather than panic or impulsiveness. When you are under pressure, the tendency is to react instinctively. Fear, frustration, and urgency can push you toward decisions that may feel necessary in the moment, but are misaligned with your purpose. Precision, however, requires that you pause, evaluate, and act deliberately. Pressure becomes the environment in which you learn the difference between reacting and responding. You begin to understand that true progress is not about moving fastest, but about moving correctly. Each decision is an opportunity to exercise discernment, to weigh options, and to align your actions with God's guidance. Pressure also teaches adaptability. Life rarely unfolds exactly as planned. Challenges, delays, and unexpected circumstances create tension, forcing you to adjust while maintaining focus on your ultimate goal. Precision is developed when you learn to adapt without losing sight of the target. You practice flexibility in strategy, but consistency in purpose. Under pressure, you learn that effective action requires both responsiveness and stability, responding to circumstances wisely while holding firm to core principles. Another important lesson is accountability. Under pressure, the consequences of actions become more visible. Every choice, word, and step carries weight. Precision grows when you take responsibility for your actions, evaluate outcomes honestly, and make corrections where needed. Pressure removes excuses. It forces you to confront your habits, your discipline, and your decision-making processes. Those who develop precision under pressure learn to take ownership, improving their effectiveness and reliability over time. Pressure also strengthens character. Stressful situations reveal weaknesses, temptations, and tendencies that might otherwise remain hidden. Precision is cultivated when you choose integrity over convenience, patience over frustration, and faith over fear. Each decision made under pressure is a training ground for maturity. What you consistently practice under weight becomes second nature when challenges arise later. The discipline developed under pressure ensures that when critical moments come, your response is measured, accurate, and aligned with purpose. Faith is central to turning pressure into precision. Pressure forces you to rely less on your own understanding and more on God's wisdom. Decisions under pressure are best made when guided by prayer, reflection, and alignment with His will. Precision emerges when you act not on impulse or emotion, but on divine insight. This reliance strengthens both your confidence and clarity, allowing you to navigate even the most intense situations with composure. Finally, pressure produces resilience. Precision is not about never facing challenges. It is about handling them effectively. Each experience under pressure trains you to endure, adapt, and maintain focus. Those who embrace pressure with faith and discipline emerge sharper, more capable, and fully prepared for greater responsibility. Everyone faces pressure, but precision is reserved for those who see pressure as preparation, respond with faith, and act with intentionality. Under pressure, you are being sharpened, trained, and aligned for your purpose. What feels like weight is actually the environment in which God shapes accuracy, wisdom, and lasting impact.
Runs out. One day you're generous, reliable, the strong one. The next, you're cold, distant, disloyal, a problem that suddenly appeared the moment you chose yourself. They say it like an accusation, like you committed a crime by stepping away from a system that was quietly dismantling you. Like survival was a betrayal. Like choosing to live instead of slowly disappearing was some unforgivable act. And maybe the most revealing part isn't what they're calling you. It's when they started calling you that. Not when you asked for help. Not when you were exhausted. Not when you were drowning under expectations that were never meant to be yours alone. They didn't call you selfish when you stayed up late fixing problems that weren't yours. They didn't call you selfish when you kept forgiving what should have ended things years ago. They didn't call you selfish when you kept showing up half, empty, smiling through depletion, convincing yourself that love meant endurance. They called you selfish when you stopped. When you stopped answering every call. When you stopped explaining your pain. When you stopped shrinking to fit into places that only valued what you could provide. When you stopped making your exhaustion more convenient for them. That's when the story changed. For a long time, you weren't seen as a person. You were a role, a function, the one who carries, absorbs, smooths things over. The emotional infrastructure everyone leans on but no one maintains. You were useful, and usefulness, when mistaken for love, becomes a trap. You gave deeply, not performatively, not for applause. You gave in the quiet ways that never make it into anyone else's memory. The way you remembered what mattered to them, the way you stayed when it would have been easier to leave, the way you took on weight that wasn't yours because someone had to hold it, and you were the only one strong enough to do it. And slowly, without anyone announcing it, your needs became optional. Inconvenient, something to get to later. Your pain was acknowledged just enough to keep you functional, never enough to actually be addressed. You learned to translate, "I'm busy," into, "Your feelings can wait." You learned to swallow disappointment so often, it started to feel normal. You learned that being dependable meant being silent about what it cost you. That's the part they leave out now. They talk about how you changed, how you walked away, how you left them behind. They don't talk about how long you stayed past the point where it was hurting you. They don't talk about how many times you tried to fix things internally before you ever moved externally. They don't talk about the nights you negotiated with yourself, telling yourself to just last a little longer, to be a little more patient, to not make waves. Because if they acknowledged that, they'd have to face something uncomfortable. They'd have to admit you didn't leave suddenly. You disappeared slowly, piece by piece, until there was almost nothing left to give. You didn't wake up wanting to be labeled selfish. You woke up empty. There's a moment people don't see. The moment before you leave. The moment where something inside you goes quiet. Not angry, not dramatic, just done. The moment you realize that if you stay, you won't be noble. You'll be erased. And that staying loyal to something that's killing you isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. So you made a decision they weren't prepared for. You chose to disappoint them instead of destroying yourself. And that decision shattered the dynamic. Because systems built on your overgiving can't survive your boundaries. Relationships built on your silence can't survive your clarity. Roles built on your exhaustion collapse the moment you stop performing them. They felt it immediately, the shift, the absence. The way the air changed when you stopped being available in the same way. And instead of asking what changed, instead of reflecting on what they'd been taking without returning, they reached for the nearest explanation that protected their comfort. Selfish. It's a convenient word. It turns your survival into a flaw. It reframes your healing as harm. It allows them to avoid the mirror. Because if you're selfish, they don't have to ask why you left. If you're cold, they don't have to acknowledge how warm you were. If you're heartless, they don't have to reckon with how often they ignored your heart. So they rewrite the narrative. They tell each other you abandoned them. They talk about loyalty as if it only flows one direction. They say you changed, as if growth is a character defect. And they say it loud enough that sometimes, late at night, the old version of you almost believes it. Almost. But something is different now. You're not scrambling to correct the story. You're not sending long explanations into rooms that never listened in the first place. You're not defending yourself against people who only valued you when you were convenient. You're quiet, and not the empty quiet you used to carry. A grounded one. That silence unsettles them more than any argument ever could. Because it means you're no longer negotiating your worth. You're no longer asking to be understood. You're no longer auditioning for a role you outgrew. While they're busy talking about you, you're rebuilding. Not in a loud, performative way, not with announcements or dramatic exits. Quietly, privately, you're learning what it feels like to rest without guilt, to say no without rehearsing an apology, to exist without constantly scanning the room for who might need something from you. And in that space, something unexpected happens. You start to feel like yourself again, not the version of you that was shaped by obligation, not the version that learned to anticipate everyone else's needs at the expense of their own. A truer version, one that remembers what it's like to breathe without bracing for impact. They don't see that part. They just see the boundary and feel the loss of access. Because that's what changed. Really, access. They were used to having unlimited access to your time, your energy, your emotional labor. And when that access was revoked, it felt like punishment. Not because you did something to them, but because they lost something they'd been relying on without acknowledging. So they reach for guilt. They send messages that sound concerned but land heavy. They talk about how things used to be. They frame your absence as cruelty, your distance as punishment. But you know the truth. You didn't leave to teach them a lesson. You left because staying was teaching you the wrong one. And maybe the hardest part, the part that doesn't get talked about enough, is that walking away didn't feel empowering at first. It felt terrifying lonely. Like stepping off something familiar into open air. You questioned yourself. Wondered if you were overreacting, if maybe you should have stayed quieter, softer, more accommodating. But then something subtle happened. The world didn't end. The guilt didn't kill you. The judgment didn't consume you. The labels didn't define you. And each day you survived your own choice. You got a little stronger. You noticed how your body felt, without constant tension, how your mind wasn't always running emergency protocols. How peace, real peace, doesn't announce itself loudly. It just shows up one morning, and you realize you slept through the night. That's when the word selfish started to lose its sting, because you saw it for what it was. Not a truth about you, but a reaction to losing control over you. You didn't become cruel. You became selective. You didn't lose empathy. You stopped directing it at people who weaponized it. You didn't abandon love. You abandoned the version of love that required you to disappear. And somewhere, whether you see it or not, people are watching. Not the loud ones rewriting the story, the quiet ones. The ones still stuck in dynamics that feel eerily familiar. They noticed that you left, that you survived, that you didn't come back begging, that you didn't collapse the way everyone said you would. They noticed that choosing yourself didn't turn you into a monster. It turned you into someone free. You weren't trying to be an example. You were just trying to stay alive. But sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes, the bravest thing someone can witness is another person refusing to die quietly. So let them call you selfish. Let the word sit where it belongs, in their mouths, in their stories, in the space where accountability should have been. You're not here to correct it. You're not here to argue with it. You're not here to return to a version of yourself that required self-erasure to be loved. You're moving forward now. slower, clearer, more intact. And the part they don't understand yet, the part that's still unfolding, is that this wasn't an ending. It was the first time you chose yourself without looking back, and that choice is still echoing. Here's what they don't see yet. Not fully, not clearly, because the moment you chose yourself didn't just close a chapter. It shifted the axis of your entire life. At first, it felt like loss, like stepping into a quieter world where familiar voices were suddenly gone, where routines dissolve, where the noise that once defined your days fell away so abruptly, it left a ringing silence behind. And in that silence, you had to face something you'd been avoiding for a long time, yourself. Not the version of you that exists in relation to other people, not the role you played, not the caretaker, the fixer, the emotional anchor. Just you, unfiltered, unassigned, unused. That's the part no one warns you about. Walking away doesn't immediately feel like freedom. It feels like withdrawal, like your nervous system doesn't know what to do without constant demand. You catch yourself waiting for the next crisis, the next call, the next moment where you're needed. And when it doesn't come, there's a strange emptiness. But that emptiness isn't absence. It's space you never had before. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, something begins to grow there. You start noticing how much energy you actually have when it isn't being siphoned off. How your thoughts move differently when they aren't shaped around anticipation and guilt. How your body relaxes when it's no longer bracing for disappointment. You realize how much of your personality was a response, a calibration, a survival strategy. You weren't dramatic. You were overwhelmed. You weren't too sensitive. You were surrounded by people who benefited from you not reacting. You weren't needy. You were starving in rooms where everyone else was eating. Once you step out of that environment, the fog lifts. And that's when the real transformation begins. Not the kind they'll ever see from the outside. Not something you can post or summarize or explain in a sentence. It happens internally, quietly. In the way you start trusting your own instincts again. In the way you stop second guessing your reactions. In the way your inner voice gets steadier instead of louder. You stop asking, "Am I wrong for this?" and start asking, "Why did I tolerate that?" That shift alone changes everything. You become harder to manipulate. Not because you're guarded, but because you're honest with yourself. You no longer need permission to leave conversations that feel wrong. You no longer over-explain boundaries to make them palatable. You no longer stay where your presence is tolerated, but not valued. And here's the part that truly unsettles the people who labeled you selfish. You don't replace them. You don't rush to fill the gap they left. You don't scramble to recreate the old dynamic with new faces. You let the space exist. You let yourself recalibrate. You let loneliness teach you the difference between solitude and neglect. That restraint, that refusal to immediately attach, is mistaken as coldness. But it's not. It's discernment. You're no longer building connections out of fear. You're choosing them from clarity. And that means fewer people have access to you now. Not because you're closed, but because you're selective. You understand. Finally, that not everyone deserves the same level of intimacy. That access is earned through consistency, respect, and reciprocity, not history or obligation. This is where your power actually comes from. Not from dominance, not from control, not from proving anything. From self-trust. You trust yourself enough to walk away without drama, to stay silent without resentment, to let people misunderstand you rather than explain yourself into exhaustion. You trust that the right people won't need convincing. They'll feel the difference immediately. And yes, the wrong people feel it too. They feel it as distance, as loss of influence, as the unsettling realization that their words no longer land the same way, that their guilt doesn't stick, that their narratives don't pull you back in. They feel your absence like a missing limb, because for a long time you were compensating for what they lacked. You were the emotional glue, the stabilizer, the one who made chaos manageable. Without you, they're forced to confront the parts of themselves you were quietly holding together. That's not your responsibility anymore. You've learned that lesson deeply now. Responsibility without reciprocity is exploitation. Loyalty without respect is self-betrayal. Love without safety is just endurance. You don't romanticize endurance anymore. You don't confuse pain with depth. You don't confuse sacrifice with virtue. You don't confuse staying with strength. Strength, you've learned, sometimes looks like leaving calmly and never returning. And the most profound shift of all, you no longer need them to understand. That urge is gone. The need to be seen correctly by people who only saw you through the lens of their needs has evaporated. You've accepted something that once felt unbearable. Some people will always misunderstand you because understanding you would require them to change. And you're done waiting for that. Your life now moves forward with a different rhythm. Slower in some ways, more intentional. You choose rest without earning it, joy without justifying it, distance without apology. You've stopped measuring your worth by how much you can give. You're learning how to receive without guilt. How to say no without explaining your trauma. How to let silence be silence, not something to fill. And in that stillness, something solid forms. A sense of self that isn't reactive, a confidence that doesn't need witnesses, a peace that doesn't depend on external approval. That's why the label selfish can't touch you anymore, because you know what selfishness actually looks like now. It looks like people who drain others and call it love. It looks like systems that demand sacrifice but offer no care. It looks like relationships that collapse the moment one person stops carrying all the weight. What you did wasn't selfish. It was honest. And honesty always feels threatening to environments built on silence. You didn't leave to punish anyone. You left to save yourself. And in doing so, you rewrote something much bigger than a single relationship or dynamic. You broke a pattern, not just for you, but for anyone watching closely enough to see that it's possible. Possible to walk away. Possible to survive the guilt. Possible to build a life that doesn't require self-erasure. That ripple is still moving. You may never see all of it. You may never know how many people quietly took courage from your decision. How many conversations shifted because you refused to stay small? How many cycles ended because you stepped out of yours? But it's happening. And the irony is, the people who tried to shame you into staying will never understand the scale of what you did. They're still focused on the loss of access, still stuck in the story where you're the villain, still trying to reconcile your absence with their version of events. Meanwhile, you're somewhere else entirely, building a life that feels like yours, choosing relationships that feel mutual, living days that don't require recovery afterward.